The whispers started subtly. A financial wizard. A Midas touch. Bernie Madoff wasn't just successful, he was legendary. His fund promised steady returns, year after year. But behind the opulent facade, a sinister truth festered. Madoff's empire was a meticulously crafted illusion, a house of cards destined to crumble. It was a Ponzi scheme, the largest the world had ever seen. Madoff, with his disarming charm, had perfected the art of deception. He moved in elite circles, a respected figure among captains of industry and celebrities. His reputation inspired blind faith in investors. Their millions lined the pockets of a master manipulator. $64.8 billion vanished overnight. The story of Bernie Madoff is a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most sophisticated facades can conceal the darkest secrets. Bernie Madoff was a master of persuasion. He didn't fit the stereotype of a slick Wall Street hustler. He was unassuming, almost grandfatherly, radiating quiet competence. He understood the psychology of wealth, the dance between aspiration and exclusivity. He cultivated an aura of secrecy, making his fund seem like an exclusive club. Investors, blinded by guaranteed returns, threw caution to the wind. They entrusted him with their life savings, lulled by his consistent, fabricated returns. Madoff created an illusion of stability. Behind the scenes, a darker reality played out. There were no complex strategies, no curated portfolios. Madoff's operation was breathtakingly simple. He ran a classic Ponzi scheme, using new investors' money to pay off older ones. The year was 2008. The global financial system was teetering on the brink of collapse. The Lehman Brothers had just filed for bankruptcy, sending shockwaves through Wall Street and beyond. Amidst this backdrop of fear and uncertainty, Bernie Madoff's carefully constructed empire began to crumble. It started with a trickle. Investors, spooked by the market meltdown, began requesting withdrawals from Madoff's fund. But the money, which they believed was safely tucked away, generating steady returns, was gone, vanished into thin air. Madoff, facing the imminent collapse of his decades-long fraud, finally confessed to his sons, who immediately turned him in to the authorities. The news of Madoff's arrest sent shockwaves through the financial world. It was a scandal of unprecedented scale, a betrayal of trust that shook the very foundations of Wall Street. The investigation that followed was swift and relentless. Federal agents descended on Madoff's offices, seizing documents and computers, piecing together the intricate details of his elaborate scheme. Section 4. Shockwaves of Betrayal: The Human Cost of Deception. The collapse of Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme wasn't just a financial disaster, it was a human tragedy. Behind the staggering numbers were real people. Families who had lost their life savings, retirees forced back into the workforce, charitable organizations forced to shutter their doors. The emotional toll was immeasurable. Among the victims were Hollywood celebrities like Steven Spielberg and Kevin Bacon, who had entrusted Madoff with their fortunes. There were prominent businessmen like Fred Wilpon, the owner of the New York Mets, who saw their investments vanish overnight. The Madoff scandal wasn't just about money, it was about the erosion of trust, the feeling of betrayal that cut deep into the very fabric of society. Section 5. Justice served. The long arm of the law catches up. The wheels of justice, once set in motion, turned swiftly. Bernie Madoff, facing a mountain of evidence against him, pleaded guilty to 11 federal felonies, including securities fraud, money laundering, and perjury. The courtroom was packed with victims, their faces etched with a mixture of anger, sadness, and disbelief. During his sentencing hearing, Madoff addressed the court, expressing remorse for his actions. "I am responsible for a great deal of suffering and pain," he said. "I live with that every day." But for many of his victims, Madoff's apology rang hollow. On June 29, 2009, U.S. District Judge Denny Chin sentenced Bernie Madoff to 150 years in prison, the maximum sentence allowed by law. The message this sentence sends is that Mr. Madoff's crimes were extraordinarily evil, Judge Chin said. Section 6. Picking up the pieces. The aftermath and the search for answers. The Madoff scandal sent shockwaves through the financial world, prompting widespread calls for reform. In the aftermath of the crisis, Congress passed the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, the most sweeping overhaul of financial regulation since the Great Depression. The act aimed to strengthen oversight of financial institutions, increase transparency in the derivatives market, and create a new consumer protection agency. While the Dodd-Frank Act represented a significant step towards preventing another Madoff-scale disaster, many experts argued that more needed to be done. They called for increased investor education, stricter enforcement of existing regulations, and a culture shift within the financial industry that prioritized ethical behavior over short-term profits. The Madoff affair served as a stark reminder that even the most sophisticated financial systems are vulnerable to fraud and abuse. Section 7. A legacy of scars: Madoff's enduring impact on Wall Street and beyond. Bernie Madoff died in prison in 2021 at the age of 82, but his legacy continues to cast a long shadow over Wall Street and beyond. His name has become synonymous with financial fraud, a cautionary tale of greed, deception, and the devastating consequences of unchecked power. The Madoff scandal had a profound impact on the lives of countless individuals and institutions. It shook investor confidence, exposed vulnerabilities in the financial system, and led to sweeping regulatory reforms. It forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about the allure of easy money, the fragility of trust, and the human capacity for both great good and great evil. The story of Bernie Madoff is a story that continues to resonate today, reminding us to remain vigilant in the face of financial risk and demand transparency and accountability from those entrusted with our money.